purely as a combination of size, speed, strength, and agility, then the young dipper, Wilt Chamberlain, might have been the greatest pure athlete of the 20th century. And if not, he's at least in the conversation.
But Wilt Chamberlain's life was a mix of wild myths and gargantuan feats. None more striking than the one he pulled off on a cold and dreary winter night in Hershey, Pennsylvania in 1962.
This incredible season, in which Wilt averaged over 50 points per game, reached its zenith in the Hershey Arena before just over 4,000 fans.
What they saw down on the floor was an unstoppable basketball force. 25-year-old Wilt Chamberlain, at the height of his powers.
Whoever believed that anyone would score 100 points in one ball game, it was done tonight by Wilt Chamberlain.
On the airplane, we'd been talking that day about Wilt Chamberlain. He's going to score 100 points against somebody pretty soon. And we get off the airplane, and the first stop was the bellman. Hey, did you guys hear what Wilt did tonight? No. He scored 100 points tonight. And that sort of is something that, they talk about things that won't be broken. I can assure you that won't be broken.
I once performed in that arena. It's in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And all I could think about in the locker room was this was the locker room that Wilt was in when he scored 100 points. How could somebody score 100 points in a game?
Wow, to envision somebody to score 100 points, and how did he do it?
I had not had an hour's sleep, not even a moment. I lived in New York City. I had to commute from New York to Philadelphia to catch a bus. We left around 11 or 12 o'clock. And if anyone knew me at that time, I had insomniac, and I never really went to bed before 4 or 5 in the morning. Plus, it was toward the end of the season, and I had a date that night before, and so everything led to me not having a night's sleep. I remember getting into the bus, going to Hershey from Philadelphia, and said, "Boy, am I tired."
Nobody wanted to go to Hershey. Players didn't want to play there. It was a home game played away on the road, so everybody was a little annoyed to begin with.
We would get to Hershey about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There were no hotels for us to go to and stay in because we didn't do those kind of things in those days. Now, there was no hotel for us to stay at because we saved money in those days. Right. You didn't stay at hotels. You went right to the arena and spent 4 or 5 hours.
It was kind of a slapstick night. I remember, too, the locker room. The locker room was terrible.
It was just a big room, a lot of brown benches set against the wall, and you had a row of wooden planks on the wall with spikes out of them that the players just hung their clothes on. It was very austere.
The shower room was small. I think there were 2 or 3 shower heads for all of us.
It was a hellhole. But for 3 games a year, it was home for the Warriors.
They didn't get rooms for us back then. And
No.
And it wasn't like the NBA is today. So we were just kind of walking around aimlessly
There was a hallway in the back.
And a hallway in the back.
Hallway in the back.
And Wilt was actually playing, went to a penny arcade, and he was shooting the gun. And he told me afterwards, he said that he was really hot. He said that he was, mowing everything down.
It started to be a magical night from the beginning.
Wilt loved to go, whenever we went to Hershey, loved to go into the arcade.
Must have put $3 and quarters in.
He was shooting clay pigeons and he couldn't miss.
And I started shooting rifles and so on and so forth, and I couldn't miss anything. And one of my closest friends, Ike Richmond, he had talked to the guy out the door who had worked in the arena for 20 years and said the highest numbers ever posted here was such and such a thing. So he would bet me that I couldn't beat that, but I just blew all those numbers away.
Bing, 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 bing.
So if there was ever a clue that I was going to have a high day, this was definitely the clip.
That could have been an indication of something unusual was going to happen that night.
So it's game 75 of an 80-game season. They're just playing out the string at this point, right? The Knicks are a last-place team. They're not going anywhere. They're going to finish 29 wins and 51 losses. The Warriors are going to go to the playoffs, but they're too many games behind the Celtics to catch them.
Hardly anybody there, probably about 4,500 people, maybe not even 5,000 people at the game. No reporters from any of the major media there, just the guy from the local paper, and Wilt scores 100 points.
Before 4,000 mesmerized fans on March 2nd, 1962, Wilt Chamberlain played in the clouds.
the 7'1" center lifted his game beyond reach of any NBA player in history.
I had a good shooting first half. I remember scoring something like 41 points.
By halftime of that unusual night, Wilt scored 41, although that figure hardly raised an eyebrow.
Wilt scored so many points and so many games that year that I didn't even know how many points he had.
I was shooting out of realms I normally don't shoot it. I usually stay pretty much in the post, turn around, play with jump shots. But I was shooting jump shots from over the top of the key and running around. I was really hitting very, very well.
His shot off the backboard that night, I'd say, accounted for most of his points.
Every one of his fadeaways hit up high on the board, hit the rim, fell in. He was just shooting at a phenomenal percentage.
Opposing players, including Bill Russell, wanted him to take that shot because he's falling away from the basket and he's not going to get the rebound. Wilt didn't like the idea that people thought he was a great player only because he was so tall. He wanted to prove that there was more to him than just that. So he would take this fall away shot, falling away from the basket, shooting over his right shoulder, banking it in.
He did not want to be considered a great player because he was big. He did not like the dunk. He felt any big guy can dunk, etc., like that. He used to like to position himself on the left-hand side of the court in the pivot, close pivot, and the ball would come in and he would fade away and play a jump shot, about a 12, 15-foot jump shot off the board. That was his favorite shot. And when he was hitting that, it was almost impossible to stop, right, because he was so big, falling away, and with his jumping and everything. And he was hitting that very well. The only way he could stop it was prevent him from getting the ball, which is not easy when a guy is that big and strong.
7 feet, 1 inch tall, and as athletic as any man who ever walked the earth. You try guarding that on a basketball court sometime.
The level on the playing field, I think, is more even now than it was then. Not to say that, he did it against some scrubs, because that's still a tough accomplishment to score 100 on anyone. But I think once a guy gets to 60 or 70, you're going to start seeing triple teams. I think it'd be tough for a guy to get 80, let alone 100. So,
you know what bothers me about that? What's that? A team has no pride. If a guy was roasting me like that, number one, I'd be in the locker room because I've been flagrant fouling him. Like, you would not want a guy. It's embarrassing when a guy just roasts you. And we're talking about if a guy scored 30 or 40 points on you, you should be embarrassed.
At what point do you start the flagrant fouls? When he hits 70-something, or?
No, I think you start around 35, 40.
Oh.
Because if a guy got that many points in the first half.
You think that?
They don't play like that anymore. No, but Chuck.
Do I think we'll ever see somebody score 100 points again? No. Just because it's so competitive now that guys won't allow it to happen. You might have 98 and guys are like not allowing you to score 100. So guys feel that when you get 50.
No, but when you have 55 and you got flagrant fouled on, you're not going to be punked out of still playing hard. You still going to get 55. No, but it makes you think like when you going up your jump shot, you don't have no free mind. Well, when guys run through your body and knock the hell out of you.
Nobody could really stop him. And everybody tried the hard way to stop him. They tried to kill him.
Wilt was in the pivot playing defense, and the fellow whom he was playing came back with an elbow and caught Wilt right in the teeth. I thought all his teeth were knocked out, and I looked on the floor. I couldn't find his teeth anywhere. What had happened, his teeth were pushed back up into his head. All you could see is the gums. He missed one game because of that.
What he brought to the players in the league was the knowledge that they would have to get a baseball bat as the only way they could intimidate Wilt. He could take it. He was like a fighter who could take a punch.
Any of you who have played basketball know it's a rough sport. Played professionally, it is a murderous game. Because if they can't block his shots, they give him the elbow on the side, right?
That's right.
Hoping not to get caught at it.
I don't know if you know Richie Guerin. Ex-Marine, tough guy. Don't ever talk to him about this game.
Richie Guerin is a tough character, and I have nothing but the highest respect for him, especially if he's waiting outside. He's a U.S. Marine. He would take a step back from nobody, and he did not want to see Wilt score 100 points.
Richie says, kind of like in jest, he says, the big fella's going for 100 tonight.
The Knicks, for some odd reason, felt as though that I was going to try to break a record against them, and they did not want that to happen. They said, not against us is he going to break a record. And so they decided
for the game plan of winning the game out of the bag and just try to stop Wilt Chamberlain.
Well, what sort of a defense do they use against you?
Well, they tried man-to-man and gang guarding me with 2 or 3 men.
I heard one team had what they thought was the perfect defense against you. They locked the dressing room door.
In the second half, the Knicks doubled, tripled, quadrupled Wilt.
New York's got 3 men in front of them. Boy, they're helping roll around, too.
Once we realized that he was scoring so many points, we don't want him to set records against us. Our strategy was, anytime the ball goes into Wilt, let's foul him.
He was awesome from the foul line that night.
Bing, like it was automatic. 28 for 32 was unreal.
Good God, sometimes would take him 10 games to hit 28 free throws.
That was really the impetus for his having a great game.
The crowd got into the game in the second half, very much by starting to chant, "We won 100." And they started their chant about my 60th point or so. When he got into the 70s, then it started getting louder. The fans started going a little more crazy, and everybody was just rooting. Every basket, the place was just bedlam.
Chamberlain at 71. He's within 2 of the record.
The excitement was the fact that Chamberlain had 73 in a regular game and 78 in an overtime game.
When he got into the 60s, I decided to alert the PA announcer, Dave Zinkoff. I think we ought to call every point that Wilt gets over the PA system.
Harvey Pollack leans over to the PA announcer, Dave Zinkoff. The Zink, as he was known.
Here's an announcement by Dave Zinkoff.
Zinkoff says, "Ladies and gentlemen, a new scoring record has been set by Wilt Chamberlain. He has 79 points.
History being written tonight in Hershey. The big man has broken the record and he's gone for more." You know what's in the fans' mind? They're thinking of the magic number, 100.
People started chanting for 100. Well, by that time, I was really exhausted, and I had stopped having a good night. I started to miss. Even I got to the foul line one time and I missed my usual 2 in a row. And I said to myself, Jesus Christ, what a way to mess up a good night. And I said, I might not make another foul shot the rest of the night. And I was really tired. And people started hollering, "We won 100, we won 100.
I don't think any of us realized that Wilt was on that much of a tear.
It's not uncommon for Wilt to get 70, 75, 60 points that year. So you got used to it. And I don't think I was aware of how many points he had until the end of the game.
It was just one of those games, and we didn't make a conscious effort, contrary to what people think. We did not make a conscious effort to get the ball to Wilt till late. Zink was doing the game, and somewhere along the line, he started shouting off every point.
Chamberlain for 2.
And now it's starting to plug in here. But think about this. It's plugging in with all the Warrior people. It's also plugging in with all the Knickerbocker people.
The thing that I really began to reflect on as a 100-point game was that the other team, being the Knicks, were trying their best to keep me from scoring any points at all. They would do things like foul my other team teammates. They would freeze the ball for as long as they could. They would do all sorts of dumb things. They weren't even trying to win the game. They were just trying to keep me from scoring 100.
New York was freezing the ball. And had you just walked into the game and not realized what was going on, you'd say, here's a team, they're losing by 15 points and they're freezing the ball. They wanted to use time so Wilt couldn't score.
In fact, it got so ridiculous at one stretch where they were deliberately fouling us when we got the ball in bounds to keep the clock from running. I was embarrassed, basically playing in a game like that.
Knickerbockers just stalling for time, but they're booing the Knickerbockers.
And while they were freezing it, we were fouling them so that we'd get the ball back. And then consequently, when we did get the ball back, they were trying to foul our guards before the ball would get into Wilt.
But my teammates, once they got the ball, made sure they couldn't get fouled. They ran in positions where they couldn't be and got me the ball under any circumstances.
In the second half, the team decided that maybe they can get 100, so they were feeding him constantly.
We were going for 100. His record was our record.
And then we all realized that this was going to happen. And it was comical because from that point on, all the shots went to Wilt, all the passes went to Wilt, and everybody on the Knicks team tried to get the ball to any player except Wilt. They would foul anybody. They just tried their best to keep the ball away from Wilt, and he was not going to go for it. Finally we wound up throwing the ball from out of bounds all the way down the court to Wilt,
Wilt gets 96, he gets 98.
Parisi with the ball down the right side, passes to Chamberlain, he's open, he shoots, he scores. Chamberlain at 98, he scored for 1-0-0.
We started to get excited the last several minutes of the game.
I think really they want to see me score that 100 a lot more than I ever anticipated. I mean, they did things that were incredible, and they made a special concert effort to get that ball to me above and beyond the call.
My teammates were really the real heroes of the 100-point game. And I'm not saying that because it's really a nice thing to pat your teammates on the back or give them the credit. Without them deciding that they wanted to see Wilt Chamberlain score 100 points, and I don't think they did it for selfish reasons of they want to be a part of history or however, whatever. I think that they were showing me that really they respected what I had did all year long, and this would be the icing on the cake.
1 minute and 1 second to play. He has 98 points. Rogers throws one to Chamberlain. He's got it.
He took a two-hand set shot from half court on the left side and almost went in because he did that in practice, and he was pretty good at it. I think he learned that when he was with the Trotters.
He shoots so good. The rebound, Luckenbill.
And I got that rebound, and he came up and set up, and I got him the ball, and he took that little fadeaway jump, and that didn't work.
Back to Chamberlain. He shoots up. No good. In and out. The rebound, Luckenbill. Back to Rucklick.
Richie Guerin came flying at me, about to tackle me.
And now, here comes Richie Guerin bearing down on Rucklick. And he's got fumes. He is furious. This is not going to happen.
At the same moment that Wilt bumped his man off his hip, gave me the signal, which was woo. And for that second, he was open, and I got the ball to Wilt before Guerin hit me.
Lucky for me, Wilt was open.
He bumps the guy off of his hip, and there he is. I threw in the ball. Boom, the rest is history.
Back to Rucklick. Into Chamberlain. Coming out of the stands, 46 seconds left. The most amazing scoring performance of all time. 100 points for the Big Zipper.
It was like watching some sort of a natural cataclysmic disaster, maybe, an earthquake or a flood of some sort. It was magnificent.
After he scored, he ran back to be on defense. By the time he got in front of midcourt, the fans had already started coming out on the court.
The people that were there just rushed to court. It was a wild scene.
There must have been 46 or 47 seconds remaining in the game. People just ran out of the stand just to touch Wilt.
And there's two things that I talk about when I talk about that game that are most important. Number one, we won the game, contrary to popular belief, a lot of people. And the other thing is, Wilt tried to come out of the game before he got to 100 points because the game was won, and many people say, well, he was trying to rub it in. He was not trying to rub it in.
3 or 4 weeks earlier than that, Frank McGuire had said to the press, well, one day soon, Wilt will probably score 100 points.
Frank McGuire had two rules. The offense always went through Wilt, and Wilt never left the floor.
But Frank McGuire acted like he didn't know Wilt when Wilt was trying to come out of the game. He kept looking away from him. And then Wilt was tired and wanted to come out of the game.
Did you start to, at 85 points, did you start to feel bad a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And the people
I'll just try and miss this one, 100 points.
And I did that. I know. I did that. Then my mother scolded me when I got home. You should be ashamed of yourself. It was not an easy night.
No.
Yeah, because I had a lot of friends on the Knicks.
The old locker rooms where we were sitting, and Wilt was sitting next to me, and he used to sweat profusely, and he's reading the stat sheet. And Guy and Tom and myself and a few of us, we were very, very happy that, he scored 100 points. And he was the only guy who had this down look on his face. And I'm wondering, I said, big fella, what's the matter? What are you upset about? He said, well, I never thought I'd take 60 shots in a ball game. And we, in my infinite wisdom, said, yeah, but you made 36 of them, so we'll take that any day of the week.
I grabbed a piece of paper, wrote 100.
So I walked over to Wilt. I said, Wilt, you see the sign? That indicates what you did here tonight. And the tower's going to take a picture of you. I said, hey, great idea.
It's arguably the most important photograph of basketball ever.
I shook his hand. I saw him holding that piece of paper, but there was no wild celebration. It was just not that big a deal. The feeling is terrific regret.
When Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points in the New York Knicks, I don't think SI gave me that much space. I wasn't on the cover of the next
But no one
week.
was there that night. There was no video, there was no TV.
It was still done, though. It was still done.
Can you believe that one of the greatest feats, maybe the greatest feat in sports history, he scores 100 points in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and in one game, there's no camera there.
Yeah.
That is the most incredible thing that's ever happened in indoor sports. The audience wants to congratulate you. We want to congratulate you and tell you how pleased we are to have you on our show tonight.
Thank you, man.
Thank you very, very much.
Wilt hasn't received all the credit for setting the example that he set in his life. I want to thank him.
For those of us who had an opportunity to play with him and know him as a person, I just can't say enough great things about him.
And, you know, Wilt has taken so many bad raps from, you know, in terms of public relations. He was one of the nicest guys in the world. And he treated me, a rookie, with a great deal of respect. And I thought he was just a fine guy. I had no problem.
The year we won the championship here, Wilt came to a function that they had for me, and he gave me a basketball. And he had a quote on it. He had it made up, and the quote is, to Al, who did all the right things at the wrong time, because I didn't miss a shot that night in the whole 9 yards. It's very, very simple. If 5 guys play one man, you should get open once in a while. So what happened is, I was just kind of sneaking around a little bit, and then go play Wilt. You 5 go over there and give me a basket once in a while.
Wilt didn't like the 100-point game for a long time. He thought it fed the belief that he was interested only in padding his own statistics. It wasn't until later in life that Wilt came to embrace it. It was almost like a father and son estranged, coming back together.
So scoring 100 points in a game was a great feat, and I really think of it that.
It was an exhibition of great art and skill, and that's the way I've always remembered it.
People say, Wilt Chamberlain say 100 points. So I would guess this is the biggest game, that I ever had.
Oh, I was just so glad they did it to somebody else and not us. Oh, I said, boy, that could have been me. Because he was that talented.
He was so dominant and so impossible to stop. Wilt was bound to score 100 points, whether it was going to be that season or some other season in the future.
They'd come to a game, and people came to the game. They said, well, he's capable of scoring 100 points. And every night they were looking for 100 points.
At the end of his epic night, a tired Wilt Chamberlain actually hitched a ride back to his New York apartment with several Knick players.
And so I fall asleep immediately. I'm just really, really tired. But every time they come to it comes to a toll booth, they stop and I'd wake up. And I can hear these guys talking. They're saying, can you believe that SOB got 100 points against us? And then I kind of fall back to sleep again, and then I wake up again, and they spent the whole trip talking about the 100 points and how I should be ashamed of myself what I did to them.
Really embarrassing.
And so when I got to my apartment, they let me off. I said to them, hey, thanks guys, but I'm really sorry about that 100 points. I didn't really mean it.
He came up with Willie Knowles and Johnny Green, and Wilt said that he had to sit in the back of his car, and he acted like he was asleep the whole time going back to New York, because he said they threatened to throw him out the car at some point coming down from Pennsylvania. So
they were really very embarrassed about the whole thing. And so they were mad at me, and I was just out there trying to have fun.
I'm surprised they even wanted them in the car. Here's a guy who's got 100 points against me, blew my brains out, and I was riding back in my car, taking him back to New York.
And I immediately fell asleep. And while I'm falling asleep and we hit a toll road stop, I kind of wake up and I can hear them saying, can you believe that SOB got 100 points against us? And the whole conversation for 2.5 hours was them calling me these names. before he dropped me off at my house first, and I get out of the car, I said, hey, fellas, thanks for the lift, and I'm so sorry about that 100 points. Believe me. I said, I didn't really mean to be an SOB, but what the hell? I know it seems like a miracle number to a lot of other people, but I could have scored 100 a number of other times. But if I had a better day and had a better cause, I believe it would be more important to me. But time you take averaging 50 points a game, to me, that was phenomenal. Right. To go out on the court and say, hey, in order for me to hit my average, I have to score 50 tonight. And if I score anything under 50, then I'm really not doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
And when I made the 100 points, I was averaging over 50 a game, so it was like doubling your average, And I was not that impressed at the time, but as I look at it and remember how hard those guys tried to keep me from scoring all of those points, I kind of chuckle.
Wilt loved to tell stories like that. Stories that may not sound true, even if they often were. And that's what's so perfect about the night he scored 100 points. Because all the mystery surrounding the truth has always kept people wondering how it happened.
Will would always talk about how there was no film of a lot of things he did, and he always mentioned the 100-point game.
I used to hate the fact that there was no video of it, but as time goes on, I think it kind of adds to the mystique of the game.
You saw Kobe have the 81 against the Toronto Raptors in LA, but 100 points, it's hard to fathom that. It's hard to put it into words, just how impressive that is. So I think it is something that'll never be surpassed, and nobody will ever have upwards of 100 points again.
I don't think anybody's would ever catch Wilt's 100. That's just different.
I really don't see a 100-point game ever happening again.
I don't see anybody doing it. You hear somebody score 100 points in a game, as a player, you never feel like that's attainable. As much as we got confidence in ourselves, 100 points is a lot of points to score in a regulation game. It's just like hearing Zeus, it's just that legend, that myth.
I struggle when people say, well, who did he score 100 points again? I don't care who he scored 100 points again. To score 100 points in an NBA basketball game, you're pretty good. You're pretty good.
If I were to score 100 points, it would probably be me, a bunch of preschoolers.
It was never going to be broken. If we were going to do that, I would ask myself, was he playing by himself or was he playing against the other 5 guys in the other team?
Unimaginable, basically. I can't even imagine seeing anybody do that. It's kind of like legend. I wish I could have seen it.
I never want to demean the 100 points, but I've had so many better games. I will say this. If the New York Knicks had played basketball and worried about winning the game, I'd have probably had 150 points.
After scoring 41 points in the first half, he exploded for 59 more in the second half. He took 63 shots, made 36 of them. What might be most impressive is that Chamberlain was a career 51% free throw shooter, and he hit 28 of his 32 free throws.
Will anybody ever score 100 points in a game?
You can't score 100 points in a game.
I disagree.
You think so?
I think somebody could score 100 in a game, only because it's small ball now.
You know who can do it? Klay Thompson can do it. Man had 61 points with 11 dribbles.
He was 40 short.
but
39 points.
He was 40 short, man. I'm saying.
And Kobe had the 81.
He was 20 short.
19 points, yeah.
I feel like Klay would have got it if he's played all 4 quarters, especially after having that 30-plus third quarter.
I think I had a shot at it back in 2016, 16, 29 minutes, but that's still 40 points away. That is incredible. That means I had to play the rest of the game and go for 40. And it's hard to even process how he did that. And he was facing double and triple teams, but that record will never be broken. Wilt Chamberlain is a timeless talent. He could play in any era and be the best athlete on the floor.
Will anyone ever score 100 points in an NBA game again?
Relevant. I think in time, that day will come. Somebody will do it. Eventually it's going to happen.
I suppose it could theoretically happen. But will there ever be another Wilt Chamberlain?
That's great. It's a great sight, Al. Happy to see Wilt here.
Absolutely not.
He blocked the shot. That time he got the hook shot, but Lou keeps it back. Chamberlain denied. He blocks another one.
Yes, it can happen. I believe that a great basketball player on a good night for him or a hot night for him can score 100 points. I believe that, sincerely. I believe there are other records I have that they may have a hard time ever taking a look at.